Hi, my name is Elle. I'm a cross-stitch artist and designer here on TikTok, and today I'm going to be answering Angelic Deliverer's question. As someone who recently started creating my own designs, what tips do you have for selling patterns? I feel like the simplest answer to this is going to be you need a shop of some kind. You need somewhere that you can send people to find your patterns. Now, the easiest and most obvious place is going to be Etsy. There are some pros and cons with Etsy. I have my own personal feelings about Etsy. However, it's a really great place for people to stumble upon your stuff by accident as they're looking for things in that genre or in related fields. So people stumble upon my stuff when they're looking for cross-stitching patterns, and they also stumble on it when they're looking for Pokemon stuff. So I have a couple different ways that people can kind of stumble upon my stuff. However, Etsy does charge things like listing fees. If you decide to go with your own website, the pros and cons of that are a little bit different. You need to drive all of the traffic all on your own to your website, but you don't have to deal with listing fees, but you do have to do with website hosting fees and things like that instead. So like I said, there are a lot of things to consider when you're deciding where you're going to be listing your patterns to start with. I do also want to preface this by saying, I should have said this at the beginning, I've only been doing this for a little over a year now. For this personally, I have done other crafty type businesses in the past, but I've only been doing patterns specifically for just over a year now. So take what I say with a grain of salt and know that I'm still growing and learning as well. That being said, I do think Etsy is a good place to start, but I do not think you should be relying on Etsy solely to be bringing in your sales. You need to be going out of your way to do the work to drive people to your Etsy shop. That is a large part of why I have a presence here on TikTok. Most people do not stumble upon my Etsy shop just by browsing Etsy. Sure, I get a few sales that way, but certainly not enough to make a huge dent in the bills. You know what I mean? And I also do want to say, this is not a full-time job for me. This is not a full-time income for me. I try to be really transparent about that. I am a stay-at-home mom. I am disabled. I am not somebody who has the capacity to go out and get a full-time job or to hold down a full-time job. So for me, this is a little bit of supplemental income. And so if you are looking for tips on how to make this a full-time business, I'm probably not the person to help you do that, but I will give you what tips that I've learned in the past year or so. So also in the interest of full transparency, most of my income is not coming from selling one-off patterns on Etsy. That's not where it's at for me. Yes, I do have a presence over there. Yes, I do make some sales over there. Honestly, the bulk of what I'm bringing in is coming from my Patreon supporters. These are the people who found me here on TikTok, who have fallen in love with what I do, who see this behind me and they want to make that for themselves. And so they are joining along in the journey. They are coming and joining my TikTok lives. They're coming and joining me on Twitch when I go live on Twitch. They are in my Discord group. I've created an entire community where these people who are interested in cross-stitching and Pokemon can come together and share their joy and their love together, and where we can support each other. And so I think that more than any individual thing that I have offered is what they're buying into. They're not here just because I'm selling a pattern of their singular favorite Pokemon. They are here because I've created a community, because there is a sense of we're all doing this together. We're on this crazy adventure together. We're cheering each other on and we're celebrating each other. And it's a positive and uplifting and warming space on the internet where people can come together and let their geek flag fly and everything's good here. So figure out what kinds of patterns you're making, who are the people who are going to be buying into this and buying into you, because that's the other portion of it. They're also not just here for, the patterns. They're also here because they like me, which is a super weird concept to me, by the way, because in my real life, most people don't like me. I rub people the wrong way. But I found my people here on the internet, people who genuinely like me, who want to know what's going on in my life and how things are. And I have a vested interest in them as well. So I know most of the people who are showing up in my TikTok lives, who are showing up in my Twitch lives, I know them by name, not just what their screen name is, but most of these people, I'm starting to learn who they are by name. They're joining my Discord, they're joining conversations. Like I said, it's a community. It's more than just a name on the screen, a comment, a video that pops up every now and then. This parasocial dynamic where people feel like they know me is now going both ways, where I'm beginning to know them as well. And I think that that's a big part of why I have been able to continue to build and grow and be successful over this past year. Because let me tell you, only about half of my followers have joined since I started doing cross stitch talk. The majority, over 50% of my followers, were from back when I was pretty exclusively talking about D&D, and specifically talking about playing D&D with tiny children, because I have tiny children and we play D&D together. But we haven't been doing that as much, so I haven't been talking about that as much. I've been really focused on this stuff for the past year, so that's what my content has been about. So those are kind of my tips. Figure out how and where you're going to be selling your patterns, figure out who your people are, and figure out how you can give them some sort of added benefit. What is it that they're buying into? They're buying you. They are figuring out who you are, and they want to support you as a person because they like you, not just because they like your product. If the only thing they cared about was the product, they would go to Amazon. That's the brutal truth. They would just go to Amazon, they would go to Walmart, they would get it for cheaper, they would find a different variation of it. So if they are here, if they are going to be buying your patterns, it is because they are buying into you. So you have to let yourself be known. That's it. That's all it is. Anyway, I don't have a problem with being brutally honest on the internet. So I will sit here and be like, I'm having a really crappy mental health day, so I'm not going to go live tonight, or things like that. Like I will straight up tell my people on Discord, just like, sorry, I can't tonight. I need a break. I need whatever. And they are respectful enough to be like, you take care of your mental health. We don't come to all the lives when we need to take care of our mental health too. And they're really, really great about that kind of stuff. So don't be scared to be vulnerable. There are definitely parts of my life that I don't share and that I don't get in depth with. So have boundaries. You don't need to share everything, but let yourself be known. Create a community where you start to know your people as well. You don't necessarily have to go the Patreon route. You can still do it by just Etsy or your own website or things like that. But like I said, creating a community, creating a way for people to start connecting with each other as well. All of that, I think, has made a really, really big difference for me in the past year. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. And as always, happy stitching.